Welcome to Mini Modernz. My name's Simone and thank you for joining me on my tiny corner on the miniature interweb where we're here to think big, build small. So let's get into it. This video is going to be an extension of the kitchen diorama that I've been working on. I'm going to be showing you some techniques on how to make vegetables to put in the fridge, and it's all going to be catered towards this diorama, but I hope you find it valuable and useful in your own dioramas. There's also going to be a printable that you can get from my Etsy store or my Patreon shop with labels for your vegetables. I want to say thank you for everyone for supporting the channel. Big shout out to all my Patreons and a huge massive shout out to Krista Mo for being part of my mini structures. Your support means so much to me. I cannot thank you enough. I'll leave a list of everything that I'm going to be using in this video. I hope you enjoy the video. I hope you get some value from it. If you do, comment down below, like, share and subscribe. Let's push this up in the YouTube algorithm so more people get to see the content and we can spread the miniature all around. I hope you enjoy. Let's get on with it. So here are the printable labels that we're going to be using for the vegetables for our fridge drawer. It's available in my Etsy shop, also in my Patreon shop, and it's free for certain tiers on my Patreon as well. So don't forget to grab yours if you want. So the first fruit or veg that we're going to start with, what do you call a tomato? Fruit or veg? The age-old question. So I know that they tend to say fruits are things with seeds, right? So I'm assuming it's a fruit, but we have it as a veg. Anyway, we're going to make a tomato. I get a few different blends of polymer clay, some from my daughter's pile, some from mine, and just mix it up and make sure that I condition it before I start using it. And then I'm just going to cut it up into tiny pieces, and then I'm going to be rolling them into little balls. I then use my dotting tool just to punch a little hole in the top there, and the shape is pretty much done. Tomatoes are not too hard to do. It's more the detail afterwards that I'm here for. So then I'm going to put the stem on there, again just using a bit more polymer clay, taking a tiny little piece, rolling it up and then adding the stem. And when we're rolling the stem, we want it as thin as possible so it looks a bit more realistic. It's not too chunky. Again, it is a preference thing too. You don't even have to do this, you could just leave it as is. But I'm going to go ahead and add this to my tomato. I just take my time to make sure that I add all of the little details. I make a whole bunch of them and put them in the oven, and then I add some more details on it using my chalk pastels just to give it a bit more depth. I use a different blend of oranges and browns and paste those on so you can see it looks a little different from how it did before. So that's the great thing about clay, you can still paint over them. I then use my gloss varnish to give it that little bit of extra shine and realism. I then use some Daz air dry clay to make the holder for the tomatoes. I just reshaped it how I wanted it and then put the tomatoes in it just to get the mold, and then just let that dry, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint that. So again, to paint it I'm going to use my chalk pastels as well. I find that they work really well with clay, polymer clay, any of the clays. Chalk pastel seems to be my go-to at the moment. So I'm just going to paint this all black, and then I'm going to add some glue to the bottom and then stick our tomatoes in there. It's a bit of a finicky job, so I use my tweezers to do it and just pop them in one by one, and it's super satisfying watching them go down, like yay. So here we have our nice fresh pack of organic tomatoes by yours truly, Mini Modernz. So here they are in their little fancy tray, looking good, ready to go to their home. And look, nail art anyone? That's the context of how small this really is. So now I'm going to wrap these for the packaging in some cling film or saran wrap, what some people call it. I'm just going to go ahead and wrap that and then just stick that down with some of my multi-purpose glue. I will be putting all the labels on towards the end, so make sure you stay tuned to see how these look with the labels. I'm going to just trim down any excess wrap that we don't need and stick that down. And here's the drawer that these will be going in. So here's just a tester so you can see it's going to go in there nice, got the label on it, it's going to look super cool. Remember to check out the video before this where we did make the fridge, the freezer, the drawer, all of it from scratch. So now it's time to move on to our next vegetable, and we're going to be making the carrot. Again, choosing some colours. You could do this in all white and completely paint it yourself, but I had some colours that were quite similar, but I do go over it like I did with the tomatoes and paint them. So I'm just going to use my little blade here just to add some extra details, some of the ridges that you'd find in your carrot, and then use a toothpick just to add the little dent that you'd get at the bottom of the carrot. And also it actually helps to hold it upright if you do, if you have it on here. So you could just pop it on there. So you can see we've got the little bit of details of the carrots, and now I'm going in with the chalk pastels again. I just paint them and add some extra details. So we've got some little dirt marks in there, hit it up with some of that gloss varnish, and then we are on our way. Again, it's a preference thing how you want yours. You could add some of the green at the bottom, you can add some stems, but I wanted mine like this, like fresh from the ground type look. There we have our beautiful carrots, and we're going to package these up as well. Again, using some cling film, I'm just going to wrap them. I kind of want them to all be facing the same direction because it's like going to be in a packet. So I'm just going to put them all the same direction and then just fold it up and then seal this together. I'm going to use a rubber band to seal this together, but I've got some clear ones, so it's actually worked out quite well. So, or if you've got those what they call those little strips that you can tie around, oh my god, I forgot the name, you know what I'm talking about, the little thin white strips. Anywho, back to the wrapping. So I'm gonna go ahead and use my rubber bands to tie this up and wrap it, but the strips probably would have been easier. Never mind, get this done, and it looks super cool afterwards. Make sure it's nice and tight and secure as well, because we just don't want that just open and flopping about, even though it's going to be stuck inside a fridge. But in case you're making these for yourself to put on the shelf, or you know, put out, make it good, guys, make it good. So there we have our lovely bag of carrots. Again, I'm going to be putting all the labels on these afterwards. Just make sure I trim this down to size so it's not too much excess hangage, you know what I mean? That looks good. So there we have our carrots. Looking good, lots of detail. I'm really happy with these. I'm definitely going to make a bunch more. On to the cucumber. The cucumber, I use a few different tones of green, added some brown in there as well, just for the extra texture. With this, you can make it any size you want, big ones, small ones, fat ones, you know, how you like it. But yeah, now I'm just going to shape the cucumber into the rough style that I want, and then I'm going to just use my blade just to add a few lines and details in it that you would normally find, and just go ahead and do that for the whole thing. And then I also use some kitchen foil just to add some more texture and indentations that you'd normally get on the skin of your cucumber. Not too shabby. Put that in the oven. Again, using my chalk pastels, I use a few different shades of green, and then I went ahead and used my gloss just to finish it off, as I do with all of my veg. I wrap this one with my cling film like I do with the rest, and then just seal it down with my glue. Now it's time for some corn. I'm going to show you two techniques of doing this. One using polymer clay and making a cane. So you have the inner colour, which is going to be the lighter yellow, and then we've got the outer colour, which is the darker, and we're just going to wrap it round and pretty much just make a tube. It's really simple cane to make. There are others which are a lot more tricky, and I really will try and dabble and experiment with those in the future, but for now this is really nice and simple, just to make yourself some corn. So you just go ahead and wrap the darker colour around the lighter colour, and you've pretty much just got your cane, and you can make this as big, as long, as thick as you like. Now you just get the shape you want, and you can just chop it up into little pieces. So I'm just going to do a small example here so you can just see. I'm going to just get rid of any excess that I don't need, and so you can see the inside of the cane is really simple. And this is just for one piece, and I also use this as my mold for when I'm using air dry clay as well. So it's really handy to get your little masterpiece, especially if you want to make multiple of one thing. You've got the tube method, you can cut and go, and the method I'm doing now is making one that I'm going to use as a master mold when I use air dry clay. I also want to get all of the details that you'll find in the middle of the corn as well, and then I'm going to add the extra detail on the outside. And one of the methods for adding the extra detail is just adding a toothpick and poking it through the middle, so you've got something to hold on to when you're adding the extra line. So something like this, a bit of corn on the cob. Also, I want to hold it up against my models just to see. It's a decent piece of corn, isn't it? So if I wanted, I can make that a bit smaller, I can make it larger. Really, that's why I love having my mini modern advisory dolls. They really help me out. I always put things beside them to scale up, so they're really advisable. One day, guys, they are going to be real dolls. Remember I said that they will be dolls. But anyway, so I'm going to just use my blade. You do this once and you don't really have to do it again if you are making molds, or if you like to take your time and do it individually. It's either way, it's a win-win. So I'm just going to make my lines going in one direction, and then I turn it over and go in the other direction. This part is a little tedious, but it's well worth it at the end to get yourself a nice bit of corn. There we go. Just keep it going around. There, we're nice, folks. So here's our master mold, perfect, ready to roll. So I went ahead and made a bunch more. I also chopped up some of the carrots because we're going to need that for a stew, but that is going to be in a different video. So you can see here I've made another one, but this was using the air dry clay. So here's the mold. It's got the hole in it, which is perfect, but we're going to fill ourselves. I use the DAS air dry clay to make it, and I also use my silicone molds. There we go. So I just put my air dry clay in there. You can let it dry, or you can just take it out as soon as you've imprinted it. It's your choice. And also, if you're using polymer clay, the silicone mold can actually go in the oven, so you can do it both ways. So I'm going to cut up some of these corns as well, because I'm going to need that for the future stew. And here's the silicone putty that I use. It's a part A and B. You just mix it together, let it set, and get your mold. So one of the things with the air dry clay method, you end up with a little hole in the middle. So I just use some more air dry clay and then just push that through the hole, and then just add my own textures again. It's really simple. So as I said, when you do the mold, it kind of makes the mold as a round circle in this technique, but then you just fill it up with your air dry clay and then just add that detail the way we did at the beginning. And like I do with all of my veg, I'm going to add some of my chalk pastels using a few different shades of yellow. And again, a lot of this I play by ear. I just kind of look at some pictures, see what colors, even get whatever's in my fridge and freezer at the time, and I just kind of look at the colors and see if I can match them up. I get stuck in there with a lot of different tones because it's the tiny details for me that matter. It might all just look like yellow, but then when you add it, you can see it has different textures. You've got the lighter, the darker. So I'll go ahead and do that with all of my corns, and like with all my pieces, I add the shiny varnish as well, because I feel like it gives it that extra little bit of realism. Looks good enough to eat, wouldn't you say? Imagine a bit of butter on that as well. Yummy. For the packaging on this one, I actually found some plastics for felt tip pens. I liked the texture. It felt a little bit sturdy, and it was kind of the look I was going for. This could be used for so many things. It's been sat in my stash waiting. I'm like, today is the day. So I've cut it up so it's kind of got a little pocket. So we've got the base of the felt tip still there. These top strips here, they can definitely be used for something else, molds or whatever. I'm not sure yet. But see, we've got our two textures here, and I think the bottom of it is just perfect to sit them in. So I'll go ahead and just glue my pieces down. So you see it's got like a little ridge at the bottom there, and I was like, oh my god, this is what I'm looking for. So I stick all of my pieces down one at a time, get those in there, and then I'm going to seal it with the lid over like this, just using my multi-purpose glue. Going to put it all around the edges and then just stick that bit of plastic down. This glue really works well as well. Once it's stuck, it's really stuck. As I said, I've experimented a lot with different glues, and the all-purpose glues, they're absolutely great. So now once that is stuck down, I go ahead and just trim it down to size, making sure it's all nice and sealed at the edges, and give it a further trim until we've got our nice little pocket-sized corn. Remember, the labels are coming at the end. Now let's make some avocados. I love these things. Love them in a bit of guacamole. Yes, I'm a guacamole fan. Tell me, avocados, yay, nay? And if you do, how do you like it? How do you like it? Anyway, so I mixed up a couple of textures of brown polymer clay. Again, you could use air dry clay for this, and once it's dried, just completely paint it with all of the colours of your choice. But I'm going with the polymer for this one. I'm going to use a toothpick to hold it so it helps me get the shape, and also it's a nice little holder for the seed or stem that you get at the end of it. So now I'm going to just use some kitchen foil and just give that a nice bit of texture. And right now it's not the color we want, but as usual I'm going to go in there with a blend of different chalk pastels. And you don't actually have to use the chalk pastels yourself. You can paint if you haven't got quite the colors you want, or you can leave it as is. It depends what kind of vibe we're going for. So now these have been in the oven. They do look like rabbit pebbles, rabbit poop right now. So it's time for us to make this look like some avocados. Again, I'm going to be using a different blend of colors, using reference pictures. I know we've got some greens, some purples, some browns. I'm going to go ahead and use a whole host of different colors. And when I am painting my food, I do a combination of wet and dry brushing. Depending on what the vibe calls for, I will start with the dry brush and then go wet, or vice versa. In this case, I'm going to start with the dry brush and see if I like it enough to commit to the wet brushing. And that's just my way of doing it, because I can just kind of dab and wipe off if I'm not happy with it. But I do like that bit of green, so it's time to wet brush this. Again, just playing by ear, playing by sight, and just going with it. Just do little patches, rub it in, and it's all a trial and error. Do you want a ripe one, not so ripe? It's entirely up to you. So that is what we're going to do now. I like that I get to explore with different colors as well to see how I can bring things to life. I enjoy the tiny details, the realism, even though some things, especially in a diorama, not everything can be seen, but I want to know that everything that I put in there looks as real as it can be. So it's starting to take some shape now. If you compare it to the brown plop that we had earlier, it's starting to get a little bit there, a vibe going. I'm starting to see avocado. It's looking good so far, but we've still got to add that little tiny detail at the tip. You know, you get that little pip or seed or stem. What is that piece? There's always things I don't know the name, but we've got to get that extra little bit of detail on there because it's important. It's all part of the process, right? Good, good, good. I think that's looking good. Got to add a few more details and obviously gloss this up a little bit so it's not looking so rough and dry. So before and after, you can definitely see the difference and I'm really happy with it. Definitely can tell that we've had some work done. Now it's time to go ahead and do the rest. So there we have it, some more avocado done, and now it's time to put it in the packaging. I'm going to use the same technique that I did making my tomato packaging, using some air dry clay. All I do is simply condition it and then just shape it to the kind of style that I want. This is a whole preference thing. You could find a bit of plastic around, some wood, whatever you want for the container. You could just even just use cling if you want, but we're going modern, stylish, organic. You know, it's coming in a perfect little package. So I'm going to make the tray that the avocados go in, just cutting around some of the air dry clay and then setting it to dry and then painting it and wrapping it the same way with cling film as we've done before. Now for some trimmed or spring onions, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to be making sort of like an ombre color, darker green, lighter green, then white being the bottom of the onion, and then we just get darker. I currently don't have, at the time of this video, I don't have all of the equipment that I do now for conditioning clay. Now I've got myself one of those spaghetti makers. Oh gosh, it's a lifesaver. I was trying everything beforehand, but it still worked. So I just keep on rolling and conditioning until I got myself like an ombre type color. You can see that we're getting there, and then at this stage basically I want to go for that bunch look. So I'm going to basically roll the bottom to kind of represent a whole bunch of them kind of merged into one, and then a few stems coming out. This was definitely a winging it experience, but it came out good at the end. I'm also going to chop some off because we're going to need that for our stew. Remember, another video that is coming. So we've got some onions, carrots and corn. For this packaging, I wanted to go for a paper bag type of look, so I used some scraps that I found that looked like paper bag. Used the scissors to give it the kind of jagged edge look, and then just simply stuck 2 layers on top of each other, then trimmed around them until they were the right size to fit my onions. I must admit, I was super impressed by how this looked. You've got your, oh, look at that. I'm well happy with that one. Get in there. Now I'm going to make some cauliflower and lettuce using similar techniques. I started by making a master mold that took quite some time because I wanted to make sure I got all the ridges and indentations of one leaf, and then imprinted that onto my putty, just sandwiching it in. I'm going to use air dry clay for this, but again, it can be used with polymer clay. I really like working with air dry clay because I can really paint it to my liking. So I condition the clay and make a few little balls that I'm going to imprint onto my mold. I've made it in such a way that I can use the whole of the mold, like squash it really on there if you want a big leaf, or just do half of it because there's so much detail on there. So what I'm going to do now is get some flour as well, made for easy release, because I'm not going to be waiting for them to dry. I'm just going to imprint and then remove. To get details on both sides, I push a little piece in. As I said, I could use the whole thing, but the size I want is about half. And then I just go ahead and make sure the pattern's the right way, and then I just sandwich these together, squish them in, and then I can remove it. When you open it up, you've got your pattern of the leaf, and this is the part now where I do the extra clean up, is what I call it. So I just take this out of the imprint, and you can see it's picked up so much detail, but we need more of a leaf shape. So I'm going to go ahead and use my blade to trim it around, and also use my toothpick and other pins just to fluff up the sides and get that nice realistic look. So this is the technique that I use if I'm just making lettuce sheets that you would find in a bag that's already just nice big sheets ready to go. Just add in all of that extra detail and then paint it to your liking. So I've made a whole bunch more. Some of them are just going to be plain lettuce in a bag, and some I'm going to make cauliflower. So to make the cauliflower, I use a toothpick and then put a nice little ball around that toothpick. Again, depending on how thick you want your actual ball of cauliflower to be, it's totally your choice. Because I'm using air dry clay, I use something called slip to stick it together, which is basically just the air dry clay and water mixed together to make a paste, which is really great for letting it stick together. And then I just stick the leaves around the ball, and I keep on going and building it up until I'm happy with the shape. It's, again, this is a preference type thing, so this is just the general way to make the shape. I'm going to go ahead and build it up some more and then paint it. So this is what the final result looks like. You give it that extra detail with the toothpick again, and then we're going to wrap it with the cling film just like before. And now it's time for some labels. So like I mentioned at the beginning, these labels are available in my Etsy store and my Patreon shop. There's a nice variety of labels that I've not even used in this video here, but it's so cool to experiment and get your food labeled up properly. So I'm going to show you some techniques here on how I stick the labels on, but it's totally up to you. You can put them where you like, how you like. So we've got the carrots just simply stuck on the bag. Our tomatoes, I'm going to go ahead and stick a label on the cucumber for you. All you have to do is cut out your label, and you can either use sellotape or glue to stick it down. I like to add a little bit of sellotape sometimes just to give it that extra little bit of a gloss. You can also use tacky glue for the shiny effect, and then just stick it down either with the sellotape or with your all-purpose glue, and then just stick it around, and then you've got yourself a label. Again, depending on what materials you use for your packaging, you can choose what glues you want to stick them down. So I'm going to go ahead and get these stuck down and put away for you. So excited. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope you got some value from it, and if you have, make sure to comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. You can find the link to my Patreon and to my Etsy shop if you want to get your own printables. The printables are free for tier 2 and 3 on my Patreon, so join over there if you like. Also join for free anyway. I do a mini Monday post every Monday to do a catch up of what I've done and what's to come for the next week. I hope you've enjoyed it. Remember guys, get your 5 a day in, and stay tuned for the next video where we're going to be adding more food to the fridge. There's so much to come guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a good day. Bye bye. Like, share, subscribe.